just going to chime in here really quickly to tell you about Energetic Consulting. We are a sales, marketing and business management support consultancy dedicated to the Australian solar power, renewable energy and clean tech industries. We can help you with all your marketing needs and sales training and business management and coaching. So have a look at our website, www.energeticconsulting.com.au, and let's see how we can help your business grow and scale to take you to the next level.
Hi, welcome to Sustainable Stories. My name's Kane Thornton. I'm the CEO of the Clean Energy Council in my day job, but today I'm the guest host of Sustainable Stories. And my guest today is someone who I think you've all got to know over the past many weeks, Russell French. Russell, welcome.
Thanks, Kane. Good to be on your show.
This is going to be a strange interview for you because you're used to interviewing others, and I've got to say up front, congratulations on the initiative. It's been, I think a really fantastic contribution to showcase. I think you've done 8 now, leaders of the solar industry more broadly, and I think it's been a wonderful initiative, incredibly well timed to really share some light on the fascinating personal stories of a bunch of interesting people. And I think to really engage people in some dialogue around mental health and well-being in what has been a really difficult and challenging time for many people. So firstly, congratulations, and on behalf of the many hundreds and thousands of viewers, thank you for taking the initiative. It's great to be back after that couple of months since you interviewed me, and I think over that period of time. And I know certainly through my discussion with you, I think people got a little bit of a peek into you as a person, and I guess the fascinating background, journey, and indeed kind of worldview that you have. And today's interview, I'm really excited to be able to now interview you and tease out a bit more of that and share more of that, because I think you're an intriguing person and have a lot to offer the world. So here goes.
Thanks, Kane.
Look, I think the first thing I'm really interested in is having interviewed 8 pretty interesting and diverse people from across the industry. What have you learnt about them? What are some of the common elements or traits? What are some of the things that set aside people in this industry to perhaps other industries? And what gems have you taken from those interviews?
Yeah, it's really interesting. Firstly, I would say that everyone has a common story of challenge that they've gone through. So often we put people up on pedestals and we think, wow, they're this amazing managing director of a business and they mustn't have been through some hard times. And it's just not true. All of them had gone through their challenging times, hit rock bottom at some point, had their own, mental health challenges, but found a way through. So I think there was a common thread of resilience that people had. I think there were gems of just what people did to keep themselves strong. And a lot of that has to do with what they do outside of work. So whether it's gardening or, playing with their children or doing a meditation practice or a yoga practice or walking or just even having coffee breaks just to detune the over-revved mind. That's what people were doing to just take themselves outside of the work situation and relax a little bit to keep the balance. But what I found fascinating is that we're all far more interconnected and alike than we realize. And everyone has a similar story of challenge, and most of those stories had a lot of triumph in them to be able to get to those senior leadership positions, which takes grit and resilience and honesty. And I think the other thing that I also found was that the best leaders had an open dialogue with their staff. They were very transparent, upfront, wanted to listen very intently and get feedback from their staff so they could grow the business and really learn and grow about what's working, what's not working, and checking in, are you okay? So just creating that sort of open dialogue with the people around them, and then also sharing their own personal story with their staff. So everyone was a team. I think that was a very common theme.
Yeah, how interesting. Probably not surprising that there were a lot of common themes through it. It's been a really big couple of months. So you and I, you interviewed me probably a bit over 2 months ago now, and it's been an extraordinary period of time. How are you doing? How have you coped through that really difficult period?
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of people that maybe don't know me as well would think that I'm always positive and optimistic guy, and that is definitely true. But I've certainly had my own personal struggles on many different levels. I mean, my business has been impacted, losing clients or trying to keep things afloat, trying to get creative. I've had a little bit of a chance just to be creative and do this series and give back. And that's been extremely motivating to me, and trying to pick up new clients for energetic consulting, marketing clients, or business management coaching clients. So for me, I've certainly had my ups and downs. I was telling you before we got on camera that, I've just been having scans on my shoulders. I've been somewhat of an athlete over the years, very motivated on that front. And I've had 2 MRI scans in the last 2 weeks. I've had cortisone injections. All kinds of stuff going on that's kind of messing around with sleep as well. And so I've got a whole bunch of different routines and rituals and habits that I do to keep myself focused. So it's been challenging, and on many different levels, relationship as well, but also extremely fulfilling because I've managed to get creative and try some new things. And I'm in the process of launching a new business, Sunfluence, with Warwick Johnston from Sunwiz as my business partner, and Donovan Craig. So that's fun. So it's highs and lows, but I'm trying to take the long-term approach.
Why? I'm not sure. Whether I'm channeling. I don't know, Simon Sinek or Morpheus in the Matrix. But why? There's thousands of people in the solar industry. You're the only person that I know who launched a new initiative. To really drive a conversation and engage the industry in a very different way. Why? Yeah,
it's a good question. Kane, it's been burning for me for a long time. I feel like I've had some dreams and aspirations for a very long time that weren't nurtured in any shape or form. I was going down a very corporate path of leading businesses, certainly had great success, being the Asia Pacific director for Enphase Energy, setting up the microinverter business here, bringing them out from California, or SunGrow or other businesses. And I was going down a very particular corporate path. But underneath all of that, there's been multiple drivers for me. One is that I always want to have impact on some level. And some of the businesses I work for, I wasn't having great impact. It was kind of like clocking in and clocking out. And I'm not that person. I want to have impact. So for me, it's been a time of reflection. Like, it's been, hitting the pause button over this last period and saying, what do I really want? And one of those things that I really wanted to do, and I have done over the years, is give back. Like, I'm massively driven by service and contribution, and there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. I mean, so Sustainable Stories was definitely about that, to give back to those businesses struggling. And one of the reasons why is because I struggled so much. I had a company called Sun Empire Solar Systems. We were a founding member of the Clean Energy Council, had connections to the BCSE before CEC. And that was a successful business, but it was really hard, and I got burnt out through that period after 10 years of having that company and other companies before it. I'm an electrician by trade. And I struggled, and I had to build up all these skills throughout those years. I went to night school for like on and off for 10 years to learn new skills, because I just had electrical skills and project management skills, and I needed customer service, marketing, sales, a whole bunch of other things that I did courses on. So I wanted to be able to share with businesses to help them overcome the pain that I went through, so they didn't have to go through that same level of pain. So that's a little bit behind Sustainable Stories. The other businesses that I have now in my life, launching, Sunfluence, that new initiative as well, is again all about helping businesses. Yes, it's a financial income stream, like it's a business, and that's my livelihood. But really, again, it's about helping businesses cut out 10 years of learning and compress that and condense that into like a really short amount of time, so you can just get straight to the chase of being more successful. And so I'm highly motivated on many different levels. I have a very strong purpose, a mission statement in my own life that drives me, gets me out of bed, even when I haven't slept very well. I'm okay, get up and get going, and I just want to keep giving back. It's deeply personal.
Great, and thank you on behalf of everyone. I think it's been I think we're all the better for it, and long may it continue. You mentioned purpose. I mean, have you always, you sort of sounded almost clinical in your in the words you use there around the importance of purpose. Has that always been the case? Are you always living aligned to your purpose? How do you handle those periods where it feels a bit disconnected? To talk a bit more about purpose and what it means for you.
Purpose is a funny one. I really got into sort of being purpose driven, I don't know, 15 years ago or something like that. Funnily enough, it actually came from when I was in the Himalayas. So the whole reason I'm in solar power, actually, I was an electrician. I had a contracting business, and we were doing really well. Like, we had all the IGA supermarket contracts, and I built it from my bedroom and built it up. And then I studied yoga and meditation in India for many years. So I used to fly in and out of ashram and just, go into that Zen space. And I discovered, walking through the Himalayas, hiking through the Himalayas, that I couldn't do it anymore. I didn't want to put in another 1,000 downlights in a pub or a massive air conditioning unit that just didn't need to be there. So then I found this kind of purpose of wanting to make environmental change and impact climate change. And it became a burning passion. But then the actual journey of purpose for me went through this very clinical approach of like these purpose statements, of like, well, there's a way of uncovering it. And then I also have coached businesses in it, at various levels, small and large, on how to be purpose driven and create a vision and the mission and the plan. But I discovered these various statements that were all kind of around like clean energy technology and environmental impact. And then I realized, actually, purpose, you don't actually need a purpose statement. You just have to do what you love. And that's the most important thing, getting away from the clinical approach. It's like, what do you love to do? And just do that in the world. Now, I do have a purpose statement, which is what I love, which is to create thriving and sustainable health and wellness for our planet and for ourselves. So thriving, sustainable health and wellness for our planet and for ourselves. That's my purpose. And it is messy. It is not a clean cut process at all.
Has it changed over the years, do you think? And will it in the future?
I think I got to a point where that's so all-encompassing of everything that I stand for that I think I'm pretty set in that. But of course, I'm always open to change. It's definitely changed over the years. Like the whole health and wellness part of it. There was a time when I really wanted to get out of solar. I'd kind of done everything I wanted to achieve. I'd led businesses at the highest level. I'd had my own multi-million-dollar business. I was kind of like, okay, I've achieved everything here. Now what do I want to do? And it was health and wellness related. I wanted to start a podcast. I wanted to start retreats for corporates. I wanted to do all these other things. I wanted to set up a day spa. I had investors to, set up a day spa. And then, those things are all still there for me in the back end, just because I love nurturing health and wellness, and either mentally or physically, emotionally, whatever that may be. And again, it's all personal, right? So because of the various burnouts that I feel like I've gone through and found my way through that. So I've essentially got a dual purpose, which is health and wellness, and that can be very personal. But then I realized it's actually about the environment as well. And so everything I love about solar power, clean energy technology, actually is directly linked with personal health and wellness. And so I think it's integrated.
How do you go? I assume it's difficult. I think it's difficult for everyone to always live their life fully to their kind of life's purpose. How do you? What happens to you when that gets a bit out of whack? I assume you don't do a lot of work, for the coal industry or anything like that. That creates a massive disconnect. But from time to time? Does that become a bit of a challenge for you? Do you feel it coming? Do you sense it? Do you sit uneasily? How do you check in on that?
It's interesting. As I've gotten older, I tend to tune in more. I mean, I completely go offline sometimes too, Kane. Like there are times when I just realize I'm on autopilot and I'm unconscious. So I try and bring the consciousness back into it and come online and say, okay, where I'm at today, let's tune in. I've definitely taken on contracts before that the values weren't aligned with the business that I was involved with, and that always starts to rub me the wrong way. At the end of the day, we would all love to do, to be in alignment with our values in every moment of the day and to, earn a great income out of that. And that's not necessarily always possible. If it is, happy days. So for me, when I'm out of alignment with my own personal values, I think life doesn't flow as well. And I pick up on that. I think anxiety kicks in. And I've realized more and more that I probably had a journey with anxiety as well. Being an A-type and stubborn and strong-willed, I didn't want to know about it, so I kind of pretended like it didn't exist, but I think that's been there. And I think being out of alignment with my purpose and my values brings out that in me. So if I notice anxiety, I must realize that there's something happening in the back end that's not aligned, and I have to bring it back.
And how do you bring it back? I mean, I think picking up a few things that you've said. Anytime I've interacted with you, you always feel like you've got a lot of positive energy and you're up and about. But as you said, you have your challenges and your more difficult times. And I think A types, almost by definition, don't necessarily cope all that well. But I think part of the same characteristics that create an A type don't necessarily lend themselves that well to coping with big challenges or those natural downtimes that might come, particularly in these sort of periods that we're in sort of globally and economically here. How do you recognize those moments, and how do you bring yourself out of them?
I would say mindfulness. So for me, leading various sort of practices out of India for many years, I came back to a simple practice of mindfulness, so meditation. So just tuning in to where I'm at. There's a great way to sort of stop those thoughts that start to run away, which is name it to tame it. I mean, Judson Brewer, like a famous neuroscientist, always talks about name it to tame it. So tuning in, taking some conscious breathing, what's here right now. And that helps me come back to myself and helps me get focused or refocused. And it could be, in 30 seconds, I can do this on like what I'm meant to be doing and what the outcome is that I want. So becoming aware of the emotions that are present. It could be, tuning in, frustration is here, or perhaps there's a sadness or grieving of some other thing that's happened on a family level, or perhaps there's anger because, something happened with a client. I mean, certainly had something recently that was frustrating and, felt like I did a great job and there was anger arising. So it's just tuning into that and not trying to push it away, just being deeply present with that and just sitting with that. And then after a period of time, instead of sort of ruminating on that, changing the state. So for me this morning, I had a bit of a funky night's sleep because I've been getting up at 3:30 a.m. on various mornings this week doing a course out of the US, which starts at 4 a.m. Kind of messed with my sleep pattern. I slept really funky last night. And then I went, right, what can I do? I tuned in. What's going on? Okay, I feel a bit flat. Get up, put the shoes on, went for a walk. I saw 4 dolphins and 2 whales, went for a swim in the cold water, reset, ready to go. And so it's having it's the toolbox of practices that I have, whether it be meditation, exercise, talking to a friend. Like tonight, I'll catch up for dinner with a good mate of mine. He's got some challenges. Right, I'm there for him. And having those resources that I can lean on and use when I need them, but being very mindful about where I'm at right now so I can make those decisions.
One of the things you flagged at the start of this conversation was the common thread for all the people you'd spoken to. It sort of they'd had a moment in their life, and listening to you, you've got incredible sort of self-awareness and I think understanding and appreciation of yourself and how you live your life. But I assume you weren't born that way. Although I think we're all born wise, aren't we? And then we become unwise, and it takes the rest of our lives to wisen up again. But
Yeah.
what was that moment? What was that moment for you? How old were you? What was the moment that sort of forced you to I don't know, look within and shift who you were as a person?
Yeah, I was always a sensitive kid. I think, I felt things kind of deeply, and I realized, hiding behind my mother's apron, so to speak, when I was a young boy. And then I overcame that through humor. So when I got to high school, I went to an all boys kind of Catholic boarding school, situation. And I overcame that with humor. So then I became like the funny guy, which is also like partly suppressing a little bit. And then I became, I was elected one of a vice captain at my school, and I didn't realize my friends thought about me that way. And then I realized from about the age of 17, I had a strong desire to do meditation. So I started my first meditation course at 17. That led me to reading countless books on mindfulness and meditation, and doing yoga courses, around the world. And so I realized there was a journey of introspection, that if I could know myself, then I could understand the world that I live in on a greater level, which then ironically got linked to business, because this isn't all just about, hippy dippy, airy fairy, yoga or meditation, because business is the great teacher. Because if you can either go sit in a cave and meditate for months on end, or you can run a company, and it's kind of like the same thing, right? Because you have to know yourself and how you're going to react in certain situations, and dig deep within yourself to be able to overcome all the mental challenges or physical challenges. So I kind of actually hold them, on a similar level, which is kind of my strange way of looking at things. But it became a lifelong journey. And in my 20s, there was a time when I thought I would become a monk. I thought I was spending so much time in India, and really thought, I could see that life for myself, just a very simplistic life. And then I consciously decided not to. And then I started at the age of 27, I started my first company. I was already sort of project managing big electrical jobs, and had, I remember doing these, like I had a job at BHP Steel Mill where we were contracted to come in, and I had a team of Hells Angels bikies that I was, at the age of, I think that was the age of 19. And, having to overcome those challenges of like being some young upstart kid who didn't know anything, but had to manage the Hells Angels. And it just led to this like lifelong journey of discovery, and ups and downs, like deep pits of like feeling like I was a failure, and an incredible highs, and trying to find that middle path along the way. And it's never going to finish, like that's always, I'm going to keep on learning.
If you stopped smiling so much and grew your beard out, I could see you as a Hell's Angel. Hey, talk about some of the people that have influenced you over the years. I mean, you've made reference to sort of some of the teachers and ideas. Who are some of those people that have really had a profound impact, and why them? What sort of drew you to those people?
Yeah. Firstly, I think it would be remiss of me not to mention my father. My dad was the chairman of the Australian manufacturing industry when it was still booming years ago. And, he used to have a team of about 1,000 staff underneath him as a senior director in business. And we had a rocky road, sort of various highs and lows in our own personal journey. I mean, Dad's still around. And he was a massive influence on me. I mean, I think every family has dysfunction in them, and ours certainly does. Like, there's no doubt about it. But it's like that loving kind of like, till death do us part. We've got each other's back, and my dad's always had my back, and been a great teacher about giving back. So Dad retired, and all he does is voluntary work, and I think it's a great inspiration to me to keep giving back. So there's my father. I've had I sought out from a young age a lot of mentors in my life. I realized that I was an electrician. I didn't know much about business. I wanted to learn and grow. Like I've got a growth mindset. I've got a hunger to keep learning. And I had various people that I was doing jobs for that I would just say, hey, would you be willing to mentor me in business to help me succeed? One of those people I actually shared, I revealed my own personal advisor and coach, Bruce Hall, who is one of these interviews, one of the 8. And that's the first time I've ever done that. I revealed Bruce to the world. And so this is actually one of my advisors, you know, and he's been an incredible inspiration. Amazing guy, amazing, you know, banker for 38 years and then decided to, you know, commit his life to coaching businesses and helping, and a force of nature. So Bruce is definitely there. On a more macro level, you know, there's people that I look up to in business, like the Richard Bransons of the world. And then, you know, I'm massive into listening to various podcasts like Brendan Burchard. There's all kinds of different people that I admire. Within our industry, there's leaders that I admire as well. And from afar, doesn't mean I know them well personally. I mean, you're certainly one of those, Kane, that I like what you stand for, and certainly getting to know you better about your openness and some things that we have in common. I think that's very inspiring to me. So there's people that are very close to me in my world, and then there's people that I look up to outside. And typically the ones that I look up to have strong ethics, they have strong values, they have strong integrity. So they do what they say they're going to do, and that's what really I'm drawn to. Because I think life's too short to do wrong by others when, you know, it's just going to come back to us anyway.
I mean, I've heard you talk about your relationship with your father before, and you can see a real incredible amount of sort of affection come through. But the family dynamic is always, I think, I mean, it's the most intense relationships any of us have, and I think it's both the most challenging, but also in many ways the most transformative for people in navigating through that relationship. You sort of alluded to some challenging family dynamics. What have you learnt from that? And I guess flowing on from that, I love the idea that that you become an adult once and only once you've forgiven your parents. Have you forgiven your parents, and when and why, and how did that play out for you?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yes, I've definitely forgiven my parents. I was kind of like a young firebrand rebel. I didn't want to be told what to do, headstrong, a lot of strong opinions. So I think I would have been, you know, a challenging son to have. I had 2 older sisters, so I was definitely given a lot more rope than they were. And I had some less strict boundaries, but I realized subconsciously, I think I sort of had to be in my bonnet about something, you know, with my parents. Either, you know, because my father traveled a lot for work, and ironically, you know, I'm not a father, but I, you know, ended up traveling a lot for work myself. But so he was away at least every 3 out of 4 weeks for some time, so for a period of my life. We lived in America for a long time when I was a kid. And so he traveled a lot, and I think I resented that. And my mother, you know, had her own sort of challenges. And there just came a point where I became mature enough to realize they did the bloody best that they could. And no one gave them, you know, it's the cliche, no one gave them an instruction manual on how to do it. They did a great job. We went to good schools. We had food on the table. We had a loving family environment. We went on holidays. We were a privileged family. And it was a process of forgiving them for all their faults and flaws and accepting them just as they are. And the only way I could accept them just as the way they are was to accept myself. And that was not easy, actually, because I felt, again, coming back to the sense of the A-type, like being a really driven A-type personality, I always wanted to be better than I was. Or I had a skewed perspective of myself that I was better than I was, you know, which is also dangerous. You know, we have a perspective of ourselves, other people have a perspective of us, and then there's reality, you know. And so I think I came to be much more comfortable with myself. and then therefore I could become more comfortable with them. And it's not a closed book. You know, we still have our moments, but we've definitely got each other's backs. And, you know, we speak regularly on a weekly basis, you know, if not every, 3 or 4 days, just tuning in, and it's become easier with time. So I remember there was a time last year where they came up for a holiday to visit, and it was just a glorious 3 days that we had together. Fun, laughing, and so it's a much easier relationship now.
Great. Yeah, it's always a complex one. I think, the point you make about being at peace with yourself, I think is probably pretty critical. And I've also found myself that only once you can sort of be comfortable and be accountable to yourself will you sort of stop blaming others. And I think your parents are the easiest target to blame for, your own whatever insecurities or anxieties or failings. And I think there's a maturing that comes with that. And I'm a parent of 2 daughters. I look forward to the day that they turn into adults, and I guess that demonstrates a level of I think a level of security and self-awareness, I guess, that comes with.
Yeah, and I can't remember who said it, but it was something like the Dalai Lama said, you can be as peaceful as you want, but then have a family, kind of thing. It's like they're the ones that trigger, and sometimes to the outside world, someone can look like a really peaceful, together, highly successful person, and then you put them with their mother or father and they fall to pieces. Yeah. I love that, just that dynamic, and how that can play out.
Yeah, I not too long ago, I had a weekend away with my extended family, and it was the first weekend. I came home from that weekend beaming because not once throughout the course of that weekend did I lose it just because of the number of buttons that would otherwise be pushed. So it's a pretty good test of your own, I think, emotional and mental states.
Yeah.
Hey, interested, just to change tact a bit, sort of COVID-19 again, since you and I first spoke a couple of months ago, an enormous amount of change to society, everything from the physical impact it's had to the economic flow-on effect to, the psychological impact for people being much more socially isolated. What's your sense of how does all that play out in society? How do you think you and your friends and the people you associate with, what good comes from all of this? How is society going to be different out the other side?
Well, I personally think this was long overdue for something to help people to hit the pause button. Now, I feel like I can talk about, the impacts of business. My own business has been heavily impacted. So I definitely empathize with the businesses out there that are feeling like maybe they need to shut the doors, or maybe they need to scale back staff, resourcing, all those kind of things. I'm right there with everyone else. But I think even in saying that, it's been a great time for me to rethink about where I wanted to go and what I want to do. And I feel like the businesses that are doing well right now have also taken stock of their position, what's working, what's not working, cleaning out some of the dead wood of, the structures of their businesses that are not cost effective, coming back to simplicity. I'm seeing a lot of businesses uncertain where to go and what to do, and wanting answers as to what's going to happen next. I guess the one thing that I feel within my own world is that to anticipate that this will always happen in business. It will always happen, a challenge of some kind. To think that we've had it reasonably smooth sailing. And when I say reasonably smooth sailing, I mean, I've been in solar for 16 years. You've been around a long time, Kane. It hasn't been smooth sailing, let's face it that way. I mean, we've been on the solar coaster for a long time. But to feel that, like there was always going to be something would happen, whether it was this or something else, that it's bound to happen. That's life. And to live with rose-colored glasses on, to think that something, major is not going to happen is just, it's not reality. So I think we need to know that we're going to get hit at various stages in our businesses, and what do we do and how do we react is the true test of who we are as individuals and what we stand for. So for me, part of what I've been doing, getting up at 3:30 in the morning and doing some courses is really about some decision making about what do I want to do, where do I want to take the business, who do I want to be and show up. And I know that I want to be a certain individual. I want to stand for my values and my integrity of what I'm trying to deliver in the world and double down on that, on making a difference. So, that's driving my business decisions right now and getting clear. So clarity is power. And I think the businesses that are unclear, it's a good time for them to do a stock take about personally, what are the outcomes? So I think we always need an outcome. What is the outcome that we want to achieve in our personal life and our business life? And how are they aligned with each other? And is the path that we're on taking us towards that outcome, or is it taking us somewhere else? And if it's taking us somewhere else, well, why? Is it because we have to pay the bills and, feed the kids? Well, that's a very valid reason. And we need to, have a little bit of balance in our approach. But I do think a lot of businesses are getting heavily impacted and people going on JobKeeper or losing jobs, which is devastating. But that's the greatest opportunity. I don't want to shy away from the fact that therein lies the juice right there, which is the opportunity of what people really want to be doing, and having the courage and the boldness to go for it. There's some government support around at the moment to help people transition in that way. As far as the solar industry is concerned, I think it's a great time of transition yet again, but it's always been a great time of transition. We've been, whether it was a feed-in tariff change, 3 or 4 times from 60-odd cent feed-in tariffs down to 5 and 8 cents, whether it's been the STC multiplier scaling back, whether it was the $8,000 rebate, whether it was, the long list of challenges that we've had, that's just the reality.
There's been plenty of triggers for change, haven't there, over the years? What about, those people in society who are, who are less introspective, who are just very sort of task-driven and don't cope well with spending time on their own and reflecting inwardly? What's your sense? To a certain degree, they've been forced to. Do you think from a sort of broader societal perspective, is there going to be a shift? Has this triggered something in them, do you think, or has this just been a really awkward and uncomfortable experience for them, and as soon as they can, they'll just get back to living their lives as they had, and not necessarily take some of the richness from this situation?
I think everyone is on their own unique journey, and it's no right or wrong, for starters. I think the ones that really take the richness of this experience, of the absolute challenge, heartache, through these last months, will become the ones that are far more successful. For those that kind of just want to turn a blind eye to it and get back to life as it was before, I think are just missing out on this great opportunity. Yes, you can do that, but just know that this isn't going to be the last challenge. It's going to happen again. And then who are you at that point? And what do you stand for? And I think I have always felt that a customer will always feel your integrity of where you're coming from if you know the value that you're trying to deliver to them, the reason why you're trying to deliver that value to them, and the outcome that you're trying to help them achieve. That clarity is power. If we're just in it to make money, that's also valid. I have nothing wrong with capitalism at all in any shape or form. I also, would love to make lots of money, but I do think that that the world is changing. I feel like this is an incredible shift in the world right now about working remotely for starters. I think a lot of companies are starting to wake up, especially in Australia. I think Australia's been very backwards compared to a lot of the world about working remotely. I've been working remotely out of the US and China and Europe for the last 10 years. And a lot of those countries embrace it more than we do. So I think Australia is waking up to that now, that it is possible to work in that fashion. I think a lot of businesses are realizing that that people want something different. They want to hear the stories about who they are. Right now, there's a lot of information overload because we're spending more time on technology. but I think people are starting to wake up to the interconnectedness of us as individuals going through similar struggle, but businesses going through similar struggle, and what do those businesses stand for, and what are they trying to give back? Because there's choices. People are spending more time online and wanting to know that the businesses that they're aligning themselves with are in alignment with their own values, and kind of giving them what they want and need and value. It's a great time of change, and I think I embrace it.
I think it's a metaphor for our conversation that the sun keeps bolting through my curtains here and shining me on the face, and no matter how fast I move to try and get out of the sunlight, it just keeps coming. It's pretty powerful. Hey, you've spoken a bit about some of the different sort of things and practices that are sort of built into your life, but can you just give us a bit of a teaser for sort of what does a normal day look like for you, and what are the practices that are really the sort of backbone of your, managing your mental health and well-being? How does your day play out in a way that supports that?
Yeah, I'm pretty clear. I'm just one of those individuals that needs structure, and I've certainly during this period lost structures. So let's be, absolutely clear that, I mean, I went from working in an office to then, like I was doing work out of co-working spaces. That co-working space has gone out of business because of COVID. I'm no longer working in that office where I had a contract with a major client because that contract was cut. I'm working from home, working remotely with team. So I need structure in my day. I wake up early. I've got a lot of energy. I wake up, I mean, this week has been a little bit unusual, sort of getting up 3:30 or, to start things at 4:00. But typically I wake up around 5. And I typically will start my day with yoga or meditation. If I just do like even a short meditation, I think that's a great way for me to start my day. I always start every single day with feeding, because when we sleep overnight, our body becomes extremely dehydrated. So I start my day with some super greens, mixed with lemon juice, salt, some Himalayan rock salt, and some oregano oil, actually, which is great for, just kind of cleansing the body. I start every day with that. That's how I kick off my morning, to just cleanse from the night before. And it kind of does a reset for me in the morning. Little quick meditation. And then I'll either do yoga or I'll do some exercise. So I'm, essentially I've got 2 torn shoulders. One's been repaired, one hasn't been, but I'm a great, I always live my life like an athlete. So I typically would exercise for an hour every day, whether that's surfing, stand-up paddleboarding, gym, cycling, running, one of those activities. And I've probably pushed it a bit too hard over the years.
What won't be on the Roman rings anymore in the future then, with a couple of dicky shoulders by the time?
Well, I'm an A-type, right? So never say never. Like, I'm just about to start with my new physiotherapist to get me back to that point, because I don't believe in giving up. But it's, I believe in getting smarter along the way. So, changing the diet. But I'll always start every day with exercise. I have to do that. I used to do gym of a night time, and I don't think that's good for ramping up cortisol at that time of the night. So I do it in the morning to get the cortisol going and the energy ready for the day. So I try and hit every single day with high energy. Now that's a double-edged sword, right? Because an A-type, especially, when I talk about myself, I had such freaking high energy for so many years that I couldn't switch it off, and then I wouldn't sleep, right? So then I had to balance it out with the meditation practice and, kind of calming down a little bit. But I had a nickname, which was Tank, because I mean, when I was working for some of the internationals, I was working 16 hours a day, up to. And, that takes a freaking toll after a while. Like, I'm Tank and I can do that for years. Like, I remember doing that for years in my own business. 12-hour days, and typically, 7 days a week, not 12 hours on weekends and all that kind of stuff. I'll get to the office at 6:30 in the morning, blah, blah, blah. And I got burnt out from that. So I was forced to develop these new practices to keep myself healthy, on track and focused. And I like to hit the day with high energy. And I also plan. So, I've got a great planner that I detail all of my day. I've got it. down here, I've got various planners. The day is planned. I will write out my plan for the day. I get some structure in, and they're really amazing planners that detail really what I want to achieve, not just the task, because being task driven is, a bit of a trap. And so I plan out my day, and then I try and stick to it. Most often, to be honest, I don't stick to the plan because I get distracted easily, but it gives me something to look back on. That's how I start my day.
Do you ever have days where you can't be asked? You just get up and get a tub of ice cream out of the freezer and plop on the couch in front of. I was going to say Sex in the City, but that doesn't. I don't know what the blokey version is of that. But do you ever have those days?
I definitely have, during this period of working from home, there have definitely been days that my morning has just fallen apart. And before I know it, I'm like, God, it's 10:30 and what have I achieved? What I found is, and I still struggle with that sometimes working from home, where I just get distracted because the dolphins are too amazing and the surf's up, But I mean, people have this because, especially where I live, right? I'm like in Byron Bay. So everyone thinks, oh, you just surf all day long. Anyone that knows me knows I'm not that guy because I would feel far too guilty about that because I'm so conscientious. But what I find is when I start to go off track, first thing I need to do is be kind to myself. And just kind of say, okay, it happened. You got distracted. You watched a YouTube video when you should be doing something else. Be kind, bring the awareness back in, and then just come back to the plan and reset and go. So I definitely get distracted. I have days when I'm so ridiculously productive, I barely take a breath. But what I've found is, like, I personally have changed over the years. So the guy that I used to be in my 20s and 30s, I'm kind of not that guy anymore, where I could just pound it out. I literally used to not even stop for lunch. I would have someone bring me lunch at my desk for a 10-minute lunch break as I scoffed the food down so I could make another call, get another proposal out the door, and I could do that all day long. And then what I realized was I spent so much time at the desk, my back locked up, and I was a really fit guy, and my back became a mess in my mid-thoracic of my back. So then I had to get a stand-up desk, and then I had to reevaluate my approach because that was not working. So what I try and do now is Pomodoro technique throughout the day. 50 minutes of pure focus, 10 minutes, go get a cup of tea, catch your breath, I typically go outside, stand in the sun, and put some more structure to de-rev my day. So I'm not just like over-revving the entire day, and I get to the end and I'm just like, burnt out.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, great. There's a lot of wisdom, I think, in that sort of approach. As I said earlier, I think particularly for those A types who have a tendency just to churn and burn energy hard for long hours. So congratulations on having the wisdom to identify that and structure your day. I'm going to ask my final question for you is the same question that you asked me and others, and that's really around the three pieces of wisdom. You've shared so much wisdom and insight over the last 50 minutes or so, but what are the three pieces of wisdom that you think is sort of at the heart of your happiness, your well-being, and the lessons that you've learned over the years? What is it that you'd want to pass on to others, or indeed to your younger self? I've got the sense that if you told your younger self this, you wouldn't have listened and and said get stuff. But what are they? What are the three bits of the pearls of wisdom for you?
Well, just ironically on that, right? I've sort of lived my life in back to front. So I started off living kind of monk-like and meditating 3 hours every night, and then went towards, capitalism and wanting to build an empire. And so I've kind of lived it back to front. A lot of people do that at the end of their life. I don't know why. It's just how I was wired. So early on, I developed, like, one of those pearls of wisdom would definitely be, do what you love and love with your heart fully in the world. Now, clearly I'm a philosophical kind of guy, but what I've found is that when I do something from my heart, then everything flows a lot better. When I get stuck in my head, I can be highly analytical, and then, I feel disconnected. People are most impacted in my world when I'm leading from my heart. So I think, love with all your heart, whatever you're doing, and those around you in your world. And a part of that is forgiveness. the other part, I would definitely, Brené Brown, the great author and, neuroscientist, etc., did her 10, she wrote a book, The 10 Regrets of the Dying, and the number one regret of the dying was not having lived a life on their terms. And one of my pearls of wisdom definitely would be to live a life on your terms, and to live fully in that, and not live trying to please others and trying to do what others think should be right. For me, I definitely felt like I should be a corporate guy my whole life, and I may still be that, but I should be a chief executive and I should be leading large business. And right now I'm just having fun living life on my terms and building new businesses and doing these kind of interviews and just having fun, and that's on my terms, and I don't need to make any excuses for that. And that's what I would pass to my grandchildren. And then lastly, I would just say, be of service to others and make a difference. I think when we take ourselves outside of our own or selfishness and self-absorption, and when we give to others, there is so much juice and light in that lights other people up, and lights ourselves up. And there was huge energy behind that everything starts to you feel fulfillment. Like money's not going to give you fulfillment, cars aren't going to give you fulfillment, beautiful houses. We all want those things. Like, even if we say we don't want them, the real fulfillment, I think, is giving back, and being of service. And that's, I can die happy having done that.
Congratulations. I must say, you're listening to your story there, it reminds me of young Siddhartha in Hermann Hesse's quite famous novel. You've been off on a journey and found yourself back by the river, living a peaceful and fulfilled life and contributing enormously to society. So congratulations on the journey you've been on and the person you've become. And can I say thanks again for this initiative? It has been a fantastic initiative. Great to hear the story of so many people across the industry, and thanks for being open to sharing your own so generously. I think being authentic and being courageous enough to share your own insights and challenges and experiences is so powerful, and I think it brings comfort to so many people around you that I know have been watching these, particularly in these more challenging times. So thanks very much for the initiative. This has been Sustainable Stories for another week, a slightly unusual version of it. Thanks again to Rusty for taking the initiative and sharing himself so openly, and look forward to the future iterations of Sustainable Stories. I can't wait to see how they evolve and how you keep giving back to the industry. So thanks for joining us today, Rusty, and thanks for the initiative.
Thanks, Kane, and a pleasure to have started this journey with you, and getting towards the end of this format, perhaps with you as well. And there's definitely more to come. I'm not turning off. I haven't switched off. Giving back in some way through Solar Social or the various solar councils around the place. So stay tuned. There's more to come, and I love it.
The world has changed by those who turn up, and there's no doubt you've been turning up, and long may that continue. So thanks very much, Rusty, and enjoy your day.
Thanks, Kane.